At number 10 we have Harry Osborn. Son of Norman Osborn and the heir to the Green Goblin mantle, Harry Osborn gains even more power than his father for a time, but eventually succumbs to Goblin's disease. When Harry is born, his father, an industrialist obsessed with money and success, bargains his soul to the demon Mephisto in exchange for mass success in business. This leaves Harry with basically no chance at a happy life, inflicting him with a number of personal tragedies in adulthood and eventually banishing his soul to hell. And all this is the primary reason he isn't higher on the list. He gets so tormented by this that he fast tracks himself into villainy, overdosing himself on the Goblin Serum in an effort to live up to his father's power. Which he does for a time. Which is why he makes it onto this list, but he doesn't last long because he contracts an illness from the Goblin Serum and dies early. At number 9 we have Peter Quill, or Star-Lord. Leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Peter Quill is the son of Jason in the comics, previous Emperor of Spartax, and holder of the mantle Mr. Knife. But in the movies, Peter Quill is the son of Ego the Living Planet, who's an extremely powerful villainous celestial. In both cases, Star-Lord is left with some pretty raw daddy issues which inform his character in pretty significant ways. The best thing his problematic fathers do for him is push him to be a very powerful and influential hero who is an adept tactician, pilot, and marksman, and has 3 times a human's lifespan, which is pretty cool. Considering he's half human, half supervillain in both these cases, he has really impressive feats under his belt that put him in a higher tier of power levels out of all the children of villains on this list. At number 8 we have Baron Helmut ZEMO, son of Baron Heinrich ZEMO. Heinrich is the main enemy of Captain America during his time in World War II, and his son, also Baron ZEMO, just with Helmut in the middle, finds a way to become an even more powerful villain than his dad was. Driven by revenge, Helmut ZEMO blames Captain America for his father's death and makes it his goal to take down the hero for good. After taking on the guise of the Phoenix to take him down at first, he fails and then falls into a vat of adhesive X, which horribly disfigures him. Years later, he comes back as simply Baron ZEMO, and then further down the line adopts the mantle of Citizen V, a more powerful version of a former adventurer that was killed by his father. A whole other slew of stuff happens in this guy's life, but the point is this 13th descendant of the Baron ZEMO bloodline becomes more powerful and influential than his father and continues to pose a threat to Captain America through his influence on Hydra and beyond. At number 7 is Sabretooth, the son of a bad guy in all senses of the word. His father Zebediah isn't necessarily a supervillain, but he's definitely a villain through and through, so it counts well enough for this list. When he notices his son's mutations starting to form, Zebediah locks a young Sabretooth, aka Victor Creed, in his basement and yanks out his sharp teeth one by one. Convinced that Sabretooth is a spawn of the devil, his father keeps him in captivity for so long that Victor decides to bite his own hand off in order to escape his bindings. Before he goes off to become Sabretooth, he takes a quick pit stop to kill his evil father, which is quite satisfying, to be honest. Sabretooth is a real powerhouse of a villain who famously becomes a nemesis to Wolverine and has been part of such teams as the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, X-Force, and even the X-Men for a brief period. At number 6 is Genesis, aka Evan Sabanur, son of Apocalypse. Evan grows up surrounded by good mutants and seems to do everything in his power to follow a path of good. He teams up with heroes like Jean Grey and Deadpool to fight off the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and more specifically Daken, who is the main leader of the organization for that time. Eventually, during the Axis storyline, Evan matures into what appears to be a spitting image of his very powerful and very evil father Apocalypse, and teams up with an inverted X-Men group who try and take over Manhattan. In this event, Evan faces off against the Avengers, showing how far he's come as a powerhouse up until that time. Tragically, Genesis finds himself caught between good and evil for his whole life until his untimely death during the Age of X-Men storyline at the hands of Omega Red. But he has an impressive run and actually shows some self-control not to fully give in to evil, especially considering who his dad was. At number 5, we of course have Scarlet Witch. This is a very commonly discussed case where this well-known hero has a very famous, or infamous, supervillain father named Magneto. And even though we don't get to hear anything of this origin in the MCU due to licensing rights, she is in fact the daughter of Magneto. Yes, her brother Quicksilver shares the same internal conflict as she does, having such an evil father, both of them starting as agents of Hydra and counterparts to the Avengers. But as Scarlet Witch matures and joins the good guys, she becomes one of the most powerful superheroes not just in the Avengers, but in all the Marvel comics. Her ability to manipulate psionic energy, or magic if you will, offers such a dynamic range to the character and gives the Avengers a huge boost in their power levels as a team. Although her intentions have always been a little questionable considering her potential for evil down to her roots. Like, you know, that one time in House of M when she says, "No more mutants," and literally wipes out the mutant gene just to get back at her father for being a bad dad. This both shows her spontaneous potential for evil, but also her extreme power, giving her a rightful spot right smack in the middle of this list. At number 4 is Carnage, son of Venom. Carnage is such a powerful spawn of Venom that Venom actually becomes terrified of Carnage, forcing him to actually team up with Spider-Man as a result. Carnage is known to be more powerful than Venom and Spider-Man combined after he faces off against both of them at once and wins. He also has plenty more abilities than Venom does, like his ability to see out of every inch of the symbiote, lift up to 80 tons, and create fully formed weapons from his symbiotic tissue, not to mention his psychic control. And that's only a few of the abilities because I don't want this list to drag on. He's an all-around more powerful version of Venom that I'm sure Venom sometimes wishes he'd never brought into this world. At number 3 is Hela. Hela is one of the most powerful villains, hands down, and she happens to be the daughter of the trickster god Loki. This isn't the case in the MCU where she's Loki's sister, but in terms of the comics, she most definitely fits on this list. And what's most interesting about this case is how much more powerful she becomes than her father. The case of Hela just shows how one's own experience can vastly outweigh the influence of their genetics, because I'd argue that Hela's power mostly comes from her experience being banished to hell. After Odin sends her to her confinement in this dark realm, she gains a lot of her resentment and eventually becomes the full-fledged goddess of death. And most notably, her killing touch takes the cake in terms of power and puts her ahead of most of the other entries on this list. At number 2 is Galacta. Now, you may want to chew my head off for putting Galacta above Hela, but you have to hear me out. She is the earthly daughter of Galactus, and although she usually hides her ability, she still has the ability to consume entire worlds. There's no two ways about it. Just because she has an easier time controlling her hunger and takes on a pretty harmless looking human form doesn't mean that she is any less capable of destroying entire planets with little to no effort. It's just plain lucky for the humans of Earth that she uses her ability for good and travels the world consuming harmful beings and viruses instead, like the Skrull virus. This is one of those cases where perhaps Galactus' child isn't quite as powerful as he is, but even coming close to that, which she does, still puts her in an insanely high echelon considering how high the bar is for a being like Galactus. At number 1 is Thane, son of Thanos. Known to be just as powerful, if not more powerful than Thanos, Thane takes the top spot on our list without question. Going under the radar for years as something of a secret son of Thanos, Thane lived as an Inhuman on Attilan, but was eventually unleashed as an equally power-hungry villain to Thanos. Acquiring the Phoenix Force for a while, Thane's abilities only increased as he went on a deadly conquest to become the ruler of the universe. His left hand has a Death Touch ability which can change the fabric of existence on command, and his right hand has the Amber Encasement ability, which traps people in a state of being between life and death, where they're completely in his control. And of course, the Phoenix Force, when he gets it, only augments these powers while he has it. Luckily, Thane is currently banished in the God Quarry, the only place that Thanos could think to keep him from taking over the universe and getting in the way of his own tyrannous pursuits.
Number 10. The Summoner. The son of War himself, born hundreds of years ago on that same island of Arago, he was part of a group of mutant wizards who referred to themselves as the Summoners. So, what could they do? Well, they could summon various creatures of Arago. Bam, just like that. So while all those mutants were being attacked, the Summoner was sent away to the Immense Dimension. He was sent to find his grandfather and also carried a portion of Arago with him. His grandfather, being Apocalypse, was needed in order to save Arakko. Not bad at all. Being the grandson of Apocalypse must be nice. My grandparents were cool, but they were never like a nth dimension cool. They just liked Werther's originals. His powers are pretty interesting. Like I said, he's able to summon and control every dark beast of Arakko. Demon elementals, you name it. I mean, in one instance, he actually held one of Cable's bombs as it went off, and it didn't even faze the guy. Number 9, death. Death for all of them. We will litter the path to Krakoa with bodies of all those who stand against us, for there is an apocalypse coming. Those are the words of the first horseman, Death. First appearing in Powers of X number 4, Death is immortal, obviously. He was sealed away on Arakko with his other fellow horsemen, which I will expand on a little later. His mother, Genesis, along with multiple other mutants, made the island of Arakko their home, even putting towers up to protect them from the threat of demons, led by Annihilation. That unfortunately didn't last very long. The demons ended up destroying the towers and attacked all of the mutants. Desperate to save Arakko, Death sent the summoner to Earth. And who is a summoner, you ask? Well, number 8, Famine. Also an OG member of the Four Horsemen, Famine is the son of Apocalypse, first in his name to serve. Similarly to the summoner, Famine had also ended up in the Immense dimension. So after his mother died to the hands of Immense dark god, Annihilation, Famine and his other siblings were approached shortly after the omniversal Magistrix Saturnine, who then asked both sides of the war to participate in the challenge of the 10 swords for victory, and they agreed. Famine is also centuries old, as he is immortal as well. Number 7, Jack STARSMORE. Making his debut in X-Men Apocalypse vs. Dracula issue 1, Jack STARSMORE was actually born into a lesser house of the clan Akaba. See, part of the STARSMORE bloodline, he wasn't treated with too much respect. The person that gave him the hardest time was Hamilton Slade, his cousin, who I'll talk about in 1 minute. He had a pretty unique mutation that made him stand out from the rest. That being, he can breathe fire. Yeah, he's a pyrokinetic who straight up shoots fire out of his mouth. Guy must kill it at parties. Oh, and he can also absorb fire too with his mouth. So if anything lights on fire in your kitchen, maybe you're cooking something and there's a little plume of dust, Jack STARSMORE can just suck it up. He was a child when he was deemed a servant to the council and realized he was a small fish in a very big and very overpowered sea. He had to make up for this lost strength, so he would always go above and beyond his duties to make sure everybody around him is happy and safe. We love him. Number 6, Evan Sabinor. Sounds pretty familiar to in Sabinor. Well, that's because he's his clone. Yeah, making his first appearance in Uncanny X-Force issue 7, Evan was created from the blood of a fallen young Apocalypse after he was killed by Phantom X. So once Warren Worthington became the Horseman of Death, Archangel, he actually was on his way to replace Apocalypse. Phantom X used that small bit of blood and combined it with the world. The world being a scientific facility that's the size of his palm. And he made a clone of Sabinor. Not a bad secret at all. Phantom X finally revealed the secret project and used the clone Evan, a good guy at heart, and he sent him after Archangel. It worked because while they were fighting, Psylocke was able to come in and attack him with the Seed of Life. Number 5, William Rolfson. Making his first appearance in Uncanny X-Force number 13, William Rolfson, better known as Genocide, is the son of Apocalypse and Autumn Rolfson. She was afraid that Apocalypse would see their affair-born son and look at him as a threat. So Autumn decided to hide and raise William by herself. Not a bad plan. During this time, William had grown into his mutant powers, and even had a bad suit to go along with it, and he was only like 15. The suit is designed to trap him and contain his powers. He kind of looks like a skeleton in a Hulkbuster armor. It's kind of neat, like a Mars Attacks alien. He can generate radioactive plasma, which is a nice touch in a fight. Yeah, you want to go? Hope you like plasma, bucko. Bam! It's also as hot as the sun's core, so it's real good. In the Dark Angel saga, when William and his mom are hiding, Archangel found them. At this time, he was Apocalypse's replacement, so he recruited William. Eventually, William's mom caught on what was going on and gave them hell. Archangel reacted by killing her. What a Number 4, Margaret Slade. So as a little girl, she straight up watched Apocalypse himself fight a gang of demons, literally cutting them up. She gave birth to Hamilton Slade, and then after that, her second son, Frederick Slade, who we'll get into a little bit. She's very stern and ruthless, as one would assume, being a descendant of Apocalypse and all. Like, imagine being a child and witnessing Apocalypse being summoned to fight demons. Like, you wouldn't necessarily be the most bubbly of all teenagers after that. I feel like you'd be a bit scarred. She favorited one of her sons a lot more simply because of the fact that he was violent and ruthless as well as her. They both had the bloodlines of Apocalypse. One was just a bit more different, if I can say that. A pretty notable power that Margaret possessed is that she's able to transform the molecules of her hands into a metallic material that she shaped into talons or claws. Kind of like that dude from the Terminator with the metal swords. These are jazz hands. These are gold. I think it's gold, right? These are gold. These are jazz hands. One of the two. Go watch Bring It On. Number 3, Frederick Slade. Born as the second child of Margaret Slade, making his first appearance in X-Men Apocalypse vs. Dracula issue 2, he's in the bloodline of Apocalypse, and he's too cool not to include. Born in the 18th century, his family was part of the main branch of Clan Akaba. So basically, he was a second born and was physically smaller, so he didn't really get too much attention from his mom. Middle child syndrome, kinda. Pretty mean. She was actually using her time and energy to mold Hamilton Slade. The family was pretty wealthy and spent most of their time in the Alexandria House, aka the cool treehouse meeting place for Clan Akaba. So Frederick, growing up more or less under the radar, that is until Ozymandias came along and saw new potential in him. Ozymandias spent his time watching the members of Clan Akaba as they betray each other and even kill each other just to get closer to Apocalypse. But Frederick Slade, he was a different egg. Ozymandias saw courage, fairness, and compassion inside of Frederick, so he trained him to become the leader of Akaba, and to be donned the title of the Fittest. What a great nickname that would be, like, oh Frederick, oh you mean Frederick the Fittest? Yeah, I know him, he's my boss. So now he's a descendant of Apocalypse, so he of course has a few tricks up his sleeve. Self-molecular manipulation for starters, which most upper level members of Clan Akaba possess. Also teleportation, but this one is unique to him. Not only can he teleport himself, but he can also teleport objects or people. It makes a cool blink sound when he teleports too. Gotta love the small details. Number 2, Hamilton Slade. Okay, remember that older brother, Frederick, that I mentioned? Yeah, that's Hamilton Slade. He made his first appearance in X-Men Apocalypse vs. Dracula, issue 1. He's a vampire mutant, so no wonder he got all the attention while Frederick sat on the sidelines. He's also got this cool, like, big clan tattoo right on his chest. Dude's not playing around. We meet him in the Victorian era, born into that same wealthy family. He was born inheriting a strong dose of Apocalypse's blood, so naturally, he was destined to become the leader. It's in his blood, literally. He looked at himself as he would Apocalypse. This guy's a born leader. The members of the clan had to take orders from him if they wanted to or not. He ended up dying at the hands of Dracula, which not a bad way to go out, or not go out. Yeah, he became part of the undead after that and returned as a vampire. As if this guy couldn't get any cooler. So Dracula and his new crew, now including Hamilton Slade, attacked Clan Akaba, killing his own mother in the meantime. And then little bro Frederick Slade came in and killed him. Yeah, he teleported his head away from the rest of his body. Nice touch, super gross. And lastly, number 1, Blink. The great granddaughter of Margaret Slade, also known as Clarice Ferguson, hello Clarice, was a main player in the Age of Apocalypse storyline. Making her first debut in Uncanny X-Men issue 317, she was one of the many mutants that were captured by the Phalanx. She's known to be rather tense and panicky because of her given powers. Anybody caught in the Blink wave, which is her teleportation field, would just get shredded. Now I don't mean like get jacked, like they would get shredded apart, their body just poof, gone. She isn't the best at controlling her powers too. And those powers being able to create teleportation warp portals, so she can displace anything and anybody as well, but she also used these portals to throw a weapon back at an enemy. Kinda like in Infinity War during the first New York battle, when Strange and Wong used their portals to throw Ebony Maw's brick darts back at him. It's pretty cool stuff. She joined the mutant nation of Krakoa and battled Nightcrawler, which is a pretty sweet issue. Number 10, Quicksilver. If you've seen the movie Kick-Ass recently, you may have noticed that 2 of the main characters, Dave and Todd, both ended up playing Quicksilver on screen. So Aaron Taylor Johnston played him in the MCU and Evan Peters played him in the X-Men universe. Quicksilver, aka Petro Maximoff, is a speedster who made his first debut all the way back in 1964 in X-Men issue number 4. He's the twin of Wanda Maximoff and the son of Magneto. In X-Men Apocalypse, he casually reveals this information to Mystique, where she promptly responds with,
What?
What? Yeah, that's a pretty good response. He goes on to explain how he met him 10 years prior, but he didn't know at the time. And now of course Marvel didn't have the rights to all of these Fox characters, so his story is a little different. Aaron Taylor Johnston's version of the Quicksilver character got his powers from the Scepter, aka the Mind Stone. Same with Wanda, they're the Miracles, not mutants. Different M. See, I thought that Evan Peters' version was honestly wasted. I mean, the fact that he explains how badly he feels for being the fastest person ever, yet he's always late to these big, crucial life moments. These character arcs were really going somewhere, and by the time we got to Dark Phoenix, and it just, it just didn't matter. I think they wasted a lot of potential. Even Quicksilver's scenes were the staples in those movies. Like as soon as you saw that Bumblebee start to slow down in X-Men Apocalypse, you already knew what was about to happen, and it was epic. It's probably the only scene that I will see. I see it on YouTube every now and then, and I'm like, you know what? I gotta watch this. It's too good. I'm hoping to see him come back in Disney Plus's WandaVision. Fingers crossed, guys. Let's do it. Number 9, Harry Osborn. Jealousy can go a long way. I mean, if your best friend got superpowers, would you not be the most jealous person on the planet? I mean, not only would I beg them for their powers, but I would probably end up resenting them. Like if my best friend was Spider-Man, yeah, I'm gonna be pretty upset every time I have to take a bus. Making his first appearance in The Amazing Spider-Man 31, Harry Osborn is Peter Parker's best friend. Played by James Franco in the Sam Raimi trilogy and Dane DeHaan in the Garfield Almost trilogy, this comic book character is one of my favorites to watch. So while Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, who is Norman Osborn, Willem Dafoe, his dad, they'd go head to head and fight. Peter Parker is also best friends with Harry Osborn, his son. So we got a little triangle of emotions there. So eventually Harry found out about his best friend's alter ego and became a madman, especially after Spider-Man killed his dad. Hello? Let's go. He also knows Peter Parker takes pics of Spider-Man, so he asks him to help with a plan. That plan didn't go well once he found out his worst enemy is also his best friend. So, donning his father's suit and becoming the next Green Goblin. Looking back at James Franco's performance as Harry Osborn, like sure there were cringe moments, but overall this guy did a pretty good job with the character development over 3 films. This guy lasted 3 films. He even had some unreal like buddy cop moments with Spider-Man in Spider-Man 3. Plus we got 3 movies with that James Franco stank guy, you know? Oh, he's so good. Then of course Dane DeHaan played him in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and his plan to hurt Peter's love interest worked a bit better, I'd say. Which Green Goblin did you prefer? I mean, let us know in the comments. Also, side question, who's your dream cast for Harry Osborn in the MCU right now? I feel like Timothée Chalamet is gonna get casted. He's a young age, he looks good, he looks cute, but he's kind of villainous. I feel like it's the perfect time for him to get thrown into the MCU. Number 8, Talia al Ghul. As you would have guessed just by her name, Talia al Ghul is the daughter of Ra's al Ghul. She made her first appearance in Detective Comics issue 411 and also played a main role in Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy in Dark Knight Rises, played by Marion Cotillard. This chick's pretty bad. I mean, Talia is the daughter of Melisandre and Ra's al Ghul, and after witnessing her mother being murdered by Quicken, she began to follow her villainous father's footsteps, learning more and more about the family business. Now, eventually becoming Ra's al Ghul's primary heir. At the end of Dark Knight Rises, we see a nice Nolan little character twist, where Miranda reveals her true identity. Now in the comics it's quite fun as well. See, Batman rescues her from Dr. Dark, in her first issue actually, and Dr. Dark had actually once been a member of her father's League of Assassins. Interesting. Ra's al Ghul informed Batman that her and Robin had been kidnapped, so Batman goes in, of course, to save the day. Then he finds out it's all this big setup by Ra's al Ghul to see if he was good enough to take his daughter's hand in marriage. I feel like Tinder works a bit easier, you know? I mean, just type in your preferences. It's not, you know, must have a cape, must be afraid of bats, no parents, no problem, super swipe. She's also the mother of Damian Wayne, but I'll save that story for another time. Number 7, Carnage. That's right, making its first appearance in The Amazing Spider-Man issue number 359, Carnage is a symbiote that is the offspring of Venom. Yeah, talk about a crazy kid. You think kids running around the mall crying is bad? Imagine the son of Venom. Wild stuff. So his host is none other than Cletus Cassidy. Cletus was sharing the same prison cell as Eddie Brock in The Amazing Spider-Man issue 344. So Cletus is hanging out, just carving a shank, kicking back, you know, doing his thing. At the same time, he was planning on stabbing Eddie Brock. Being a murderer and all, that's what they, you know, do. So the Venom symbiote then comes in to save the day. So after Brock is reunited with that goopy fun, a small little piece of it attaches itself to Cletus, thus becoming Carnage. See, Carnage is a scary offspring of Venom, and probably the scariest of the Clintar. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing this angry boy in Venom. Let there be carnage. I wasn't a fan of Venom that much, but this crazy redhead is too fun to ignore. He's probably gonna kill it in the next one. Who's gonna make it, you know, Spider-Man 1? Cool. Spider-Man 2, oh my god, way better. And also, we better get an R rating or I'm gonna kick somebody in the shins. The crazy offspring of Venom is being portrayed by Woody Harrelson, thank god, because he's amazing. And if you haven't seen the new Planet of the Apes trilogy, he's the human antagonist of the third one, and it's so good. He does a bang up job. I've always felt like Michael C. Hall would do a good job too, ever since Dexter. I'm telling you. Number 7, Rose Wilson. Rose Wilson is the daughter of Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke, making her first appearance in Deathstroke the Terminator issue 15. So after Deathstroke met Sweet Lily after his divorce with Adeline Kane, they ended up having a baby together. how lovely. Nothing more romantic than trekking to Thailand on a search and rescue mission, you know? Applebee's? Nah, it's not good enough. Not romantic enough, Applebee's, get out of here. So Slade's half-brother, Wade, yeah, Wade Wilson, it's a whole thing, I know. So Slade, using his persona, Ravager, tried killing all of Slade's friends and family. Not cool, dude. So after Sweet Lily drove off a cliff and died, Rose reached out to her father, Slade, but he wasn't on board. He felt like he was responsible for the death of 2 of his sons, so naturally, he's like, nah, get away from me, you don't want any part of this. So she ended up joining the Titans. After being injured from a training exercise, she had her first experience with her precognitive powers, seeing a vision of Deathstroke's future. This next part is insane. So Deathstroke hired Ravager, the same guy who attacked his family, to go and kill Rose for $100,000. That's not even that much either. Like, I mean, higher. Negotiate. Then he alerted the Titans anonymously, and after barely escaping, Rose woke up in Deathstroke's lair, where he apologized to Rose for abandoning her at a young age. I mean, you know, going out for ice cream would have sufficed, but hiring assassins to kill you works just as well. Whatever you prefer. Tomatoes, tomatoes, to each their own. Have at her. Number 6, Loki. Arguably one of the best characters of the MCU, Loki is the adoptive son of Odin. But who are his real parents? Loki Laufeyson, yes, that's his real name, has a little tongue twister in it, is the son of the frost giant, Laufey. He was left as a baby, abandoned in his home world, Jotunheim. During a battle, Odin had found his lost child and took him in as his own. We see this in the first Thor movie back in 2011. When Loki finds out that his motives are peddled by being the offspring of an evil frost giant, he gets a little upset. He always felt different growing up, and often looked down on Thor as he got the most attention growing up, being Odin's true son. Odin had chosen not to tell Loki of his true heritage and raise him as one of his own, being a nice guy and all. But with evil powers comes evil responsibility, and Loki ended up becoming the villain a year later in the 2012 Avengers film. See, I favored Loki's storyline more than half of the main Avengers. I mean, the adoptive thing wasn't taken lightly at all, and Tom Hiddleston did an amazing job showing these moments of weakness and anger to Odin. He met his demise in Infinity War, we think, but you know, we have this whole Disney Plus show titled Loki coming out soon, so I feel like the God of Mischief isn't quite done with us yet, thankfully. Number 5, Alexei Kravinoff. Son of Kraven the Hunter, Alexei is just as capable of killing the Webhead. Making his first appearance in the Spectacular Spider-Man issue 243, Alexei is the son of Kraven the Hunter and a mutant woman. So Alexei has his father's powers, but he also has powers that allowed him to talk to animals, passed down from his mutant mother. I've always wanted that power too. I mean, the amount of times I've had to take on raccoons with like a hockey stick, like, can you guys just leave, please? It'd be so much easier if I could just... and then they leave. That's it, no problems. He's also known as the second Kraven the Hunter, I mean, obviously. And there's even talks of Jason Momoa playing Kraven the Hunter in the next live-action Spider-Man movie for the MCU. And with Jamie Foxx just being announced to reprise his role as Electro, we could potentially see Kraven join in to complete the Sinister Six lineup, which is something we almost got in the Amazing Spider-Man Almost trilogy. So it may finally be happening, people. Hold on to your butts. And if he's defeated, we always know that his son will just come in and be Kraven the Hunter 2.0. Good to know. Number 4, Thane. Remember that guy from Infinity War? His name was Thanos. It's kind of a big deal, had a gauntlet, loved snapping his fingers, maybe he watched a lot of West Side Story, I don't know. Yeah, he has a son named Thane. He's the outcome when you mix Thanos with an Inhuman. He made his first appearance in the New Avengers Volume 3, Issue 10, also referred to as Living Death. Thane is quite the descendant. His powers are so strong that he needed Ebony Maw, aka Squidward, to make him a containment suit. Without the suit, his powers were very unstable. I mean, this guy goes to work. He once trapped Thanos and Proxima Midnight in an amber construct by using just his right hand. My right hand is really weak, especially today. I have morning hands still, you know, where you just can't open anything. It's just a weak day. Yeah, morning hands. You're welcome for that. So after seeing that, Ebony Maw's like, hey man, let's just chill. I can discipline you. You'll be a good guy. Don't listen to your dad. He's kind of a dick. Number 3, SINTHEA SHMIDT. First appearing in Captain America issue 290, she is the daughter of Red Skull. That's right, the villain in Captain America, the First Avenger. So Red Skull realized he needs a male heir and went out, found himself a washerwoman, and went about it. After the mother had died during childbirth, Red Skull, better known as Johann Schmidt, almost killed the child because it had been a girl and not a boy. What a monster! So Susan Scarborough was like, hey, that's just a bit wild. Maybe let's not do that. I'll raise her. What do you say? And he agreed. So the Red Skull passed on his wisdom through Susan. He came back as she was a child and put her in a machine that sped up her aging process, making her an adult and giving her her superpowers, thus becoming Mother Superior, the leader of the Sisters of Sin. My favorite part of all this, one time Captain America was put in this machine and became super old. And then when he used the machine to revert back to regular age, he took the sisters with him so that they also de-aged. And I honestly think we're gonna see some sort of version of this in the MCU now with Scott Lang's van. I mean, sure, they failed at making a time machine, but they also accidentally created this aging machine or de-aging machine. So like, can we throw Cat back in there and just get him to sign some more movie contracts? Cause I feel like we're not done with Chris Evans yet. And number 2, Star-Lord. Of course, I have to include him in this list as he found out who his real father was in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Yep, I said spoilers earlier, you were warned. After the events of Guardians of the Galaxy 1 unfolded, Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, was able to hold an Infinity Stone with his bare hands. And this didn't go unnoticed. Even groups of beings in the past have been trying to be able to maintain that power, and they failed. Even connecting themselves to share it, it didn't work. It's a power stone, it's way too powerful. His real father turned out to be not David Hasselhoff, but Ego, the living planet. Peter Quill's powers were explained to him by his father, played by Kurt Russell, and soon after we got to see them playing catch, and it was insanely awkward and funny. Ego turned out to be not a nice guy. Killing Ego meant saying goodbye to his father's powers that were handed down to him, these celestial powers. But that wasn't a problem for Star-Lord. I mean, it sure would have helped beat Thanos, but I'm sure he would have just messed that plan up too, moody man. And finally, number 1, Vision. Yep, hear me out, okay? So in Avengers Age of Ultron, we find the twins, one of which I was talking about earlier, Pietro, aka Quicksilver, and the other, Wanda, aka Scarlet Witch. Their powers are given to them not by Magneto in this world, but one of the Infinity Stones, the Mind Stone. After Ultron is accidentally created, he has one idea, to have a kid, make a new body, you know, pass it on. So after being created by Stark, Ultron was born with the same goals almost. So he figured if he took some vibranium and mixed it with that same stone that gave him life, he could make an unbelievable new body, a stronger body. And he nearly succeeds. That is until Tony Stark and the gang comes in, gets the Scepter, and thinks, you know what, why not finish the mission? So they plug the dude in and they finish the download, now we have Vision. And the rest of the Avengers aren't too fond of this idea, as it's a stronger version of Ultron, and that dude's in the air right now trying to blast the, you know, he's not nice. If at first you don't succeed, just try it again, you know? So Vision pops out, starts questioning his existence the same way his original creator, Ultron, did. The team carefully walks around him, and it isn't until Vision lifts Thor's hammer until they trust him. So Vision floats up to Ultron in the final battle, and Ultron says to him, "My vision." That's his baby, and now he has a cape and he sounds like Paul Bettany. What's going on? Are you guys looking forward to seeing Vision somehow make a return in WandaVision on Disney+? Let us know down below how you think he's coming back, cause we have a couple ideas cooking over here.